Our story begins in a seemingly ordinary high-rise apartment complex. Like many buildings in a bustling city, it was a place of coming and going, filled with the everyday lives of its residents. But one of its elevators, elevator number 4, had a reputation. People would avoid it if they could, often waiting longer for another one, even if they were in a hurry. Whispers and rumors circulated through the building's corridors, tales of strange malfunctions, eerie sounds, and unsettling feelings. The most famous story, the one that cemented the elevator's cursed status, involves a young woman named Min Jun. Min Jun was a student who lived on the 14th floor. One evening, she was returning home late from her part-time job. It was well past midnight, and the building was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Tired and ready for bed, she didn't hesitate when elevator number 4's doors slid open before her. She stepped inside, pressed the button for her floor, and the doors closed. The elevator began its ascent. 5th floor, 6th, 7th, everything seemed normal. But as it passed the 9th floor, the lights inside the elevator flickered violently before going out completely, plunging Min Jun into absolute darkness. The elevator car shuddered to a halt. A sudden stop like that is enough to startle anyone, but what happened next was far more terrifying. In the pitch black, Min Jun fumbled for her phone to use its flashlight. As she did, she heard a sound. A faint, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like it was coming from outside the elevator doors. She held her breath, listening. The tapping continued, slow and deliberate. Her heart pounded in her chest. Who could possibly be tapping on the elevator doors between floors? She finally managed to turn on her phone's light, pointing it at the control panel, the emergency button. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it. But just as she was about to press it, the tapping stopped. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence filled the small space. Min Jun waited, her eyes glued to the dark metal doors. Then, a new sound began. A soft, scratching noise. It started at the bottom of the doors and slowly moved upwards, as if someone or something was dragging their fingernails along the metal. The sound was agonizingly slow, grating on her nerves. Panic set in. She began pressing the emergency call button over and over again, but there was no response, no voice on the intercom, no reassuring crackle of a connection. Just the relentless scratching getting closer and closer to the top of the doors. Suddenly, the elevator jolted and dropped a few inches with a loud clang, making her scream. The scratching stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying than the noise. Min Jun was crying now, huddled in the corner, her phone's light shaking, casting dancing shadows around the confined space. And then she heard it. A whisper. It was faint, right next to her ear. A cold, airy voice that said a single word. Found you. At that exact moment, the main lights in the elevator flickered back on. The car gave another lurch and began to move upwards again, as if nothing had happened. It stopped smoothly on the 14th floor, and the doors slid open to her familiar hallway. Min Jun scrambled out of the elevator, not daring to look back, and sprinted to her apartment door, fumbling with her keys with shaking hands. Once inside, she locked and bolted the door, collapsing against it, sobbing. She never took that elevator again. In fact, she moved out of the building less than a month later. She told her story to a few close friends, and it quickly spread throughout the apartment complex, adding another terrifying chapter to the legend of the cursed elevator. But Min Jun's experience wasn't an isolated incident. Other residents had their own stories. A man reported getting into the elevator on the ground floor, only to have the doors open on the 4th floor, a floor number often associated with death in Korean culture, to reveal a completely dark and empty hallway, accompanied by a sudden, bone-chilling drop in temperature. He said the doors stayed open for a full minute before closing on their own and taking him to his floor. Another family with a young child claimed their son would always cry and point to the top corner of the elevator, saying a shadow lady was watching them. They dismissed it as a child's imagination at first, until one day the father was riding the elevator alone and saw a fleeting dark shape in the reflective surface of the doors, right where his son used to point. So what's the origin of this curse? The building's older residents have a theory. They say that years ago, before the apartment complex was even built, the land was the site of a tragic accident. A fire had broken out in a small workshop that stood there, and a young woman was trapped inside. She couldn't escape. They say her spirit has been tied to the land ever since. When the apartment building was constructed, her restless soul supposedly attached itself to something that moves between worlds, between floors, elevator number 4. They say she is lonely and sometimes tries to interact with the living. The tapping is her trying to get your attention. The scratching is her desperation to get out, or perhaps to get in. And the whispers. The whispers are a sign that she has taken a particular interest in you. Maintenance crews were called countless times over the years. They checked the wiring, the mechanics, the control systems. They never found anything wrong with elevator number 4. On paper, it was perfectly functional. Yet, the incidents continued. The management company even brought in a shaman to perform a cleansing ritual, but the eerie occurrences, though they subsided for a while, always returned. The story serves as a chilling reminder that some places hold memories and energies we can't explain. The line between the living and the dead can sometimes be as thin as an elevator door. Whether it's a restless spirit, a collective psychological effect fueled by fear, or something else entirely, the legend of the cursed soul elevator lives on. It makes you wonder about the unseen history of the places we live and the spaces we pass through every day. So the next time you're alone in an elevator and the lights start to flicker, or you hear a strange, unexplainable noise, just remember Minjun's story. Remember the tapping, the scratching, and the cold whisper in the dark. You might just be riding with an unseen passenger. Thanks for listening to this chilling tale. If you have any similar stories or experiences, I'd love to read them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into the strange and unexplained. Stay safe, and maybe take the stairs next time.